Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Politdigm podcast. My name is Red, and today I'm joined by my co host, Alpha.
Hello.
And today is the 29th of August, and we're recording this one day before the podcast is airing. The last episode, as if you watched that, you will know that we had to do a little bit of a switch up in terms of our schedule. For the coming weeks, this will be the last time we kind of have to switch up stuff purely because of personal stuff in our lives. And so, yeah, obviously, me and Alpha are students, so in the future, our posting schedule might have to change or might be affected. We have no clue how that will be. So for the coming future, we're just still gonna be posting the day we are today. But yeah, till then, we'll just keep doing it the way we've been doing it. So today we're going to be talking about Alpha's blog, because it's a Alpha week, I guess. And so yeah, go ahead. What is it about, Alpha?
First of all, Alpha Week.
I don't know, man. It sounds pretty
Yeah,
bad, but hey.
it does. Yeah, it sounds horrible, but I'll roll with it for the time being. So, this week's blog, as stated by Red, was written by me, and it's about distrust in science. So, Red, I don't think you're aware of this, but I have a slight guilty pleasure. I like looking at insane conspiracy theories being analyzed by people that actually know what they're talking about and just demolishing the theories step by step. I've seen it everywhere, from Jubilee to small channels, with people that believe the Earth is flat to others that say that we live on the carapace of a giant turtle stacked on more giant turtles. I've seen it all, basically.
Mm.
And one of those people that I really like watching, it's someone that I've mentioned sometimes in the podcast, is a YouTuber called Minuteman. Exactly, that's it.
I don't think you've
Uh,
actually talked about it, but
yeah, because the name is because he started on TikTok and then moved to YouTube to do longer term videos. He recently did a massive series on Graham Graham Hancock and his Netflix show about his theory that stated that there was a massive global civilization before the end of the last ice age that just completely disappeared. And the show is horrible, but that's a whole can of worms. And recently, he was invited to a podcast to talk about Indiana Jones, the movie. And the whole podcast sort of diverged into archaeology and science and why people is trust in science. And I remember Milo, the host of Me and Minute Man, saying that whenever he sees someone that doesn't trust in science, he sees someone that has been failed by a school teacher, by a by the education system at large, and that kind of sent me to a spiral of thinking, yeah, why is that? And furthermore, at that same time, I got assigned schoolwork where I had to write a paper on exactly that, distrust in science, not just from like society perspective, but also as a perspective of the education system and what scientists could do better to try and lessen the problem. So that all kind of stacked up, and I've been meaning to write this blog for a while now, and I finally decided to do it last week and to publish it on Monday. So, first of all, why should we trust science? The beautiful thing about science is that science has a basis in a method of acquiring knowledge. In science, you can't just state, I think this is how it works. You and have that be the whole solution. You can definitely state your hypothesis, but then you have to pursue said hypothesis. you can't just stay in the theoretical. You gotta try to prove, be it by any means, be it by math, be it by fieldwork, be it by observation. You gotta either prove that your hypothesis is real or completely discard it. And there are a few diverging groups that state that the scientific method is different things, but that's basically it. That's a scientific method. We've learned it in school, right? Right?
Yeah, we did many
Exactly.
times, I think, but at this point.
Yeah. Currently, one of the method that's proposed that I think is the most attractive is the one proposed by Karl Popper, which basically says that okay, so a scientific theory is something that we can either prove that doesn't happen at all, that is completely false, or that we can't prove as false with the current information, because he believes that we can never truly prove something as true. The concept of true is a paragon, because our information is always limited. It's like the peak of a mountain that we can't reach, that we can't see. We're just climbing it and hoping that with each discovery we get closer and closer to it without actually seeing through a giant cloud of fog. That's basically it. And that everything should start with observation, and then there's a theory. No, sorry, everything should start with a theory, and then there are repetitive tests done to try and show whether the theory is wrong. And if the theory isn't shown as wrong, then it's accepted as validated for the time being. That's basically it. But there's also the classic method that just says exactly what I was going to say, but I got mistaken. That says that everything starts with observation. After observation, there's a theory, and we go from down there. Now, once again, the key thing about science is testing. It's repetition. It's one person finding something and sharing it throughout the world with other brilliant minds who will themselves try to reproduce or test the results to see if it's valid. You have a good example with cold fusion, if I'm not mistaken. There was a science, if I'm not mistaken, in the 1960s, late 1960s, where two scientists claimed that they had been able to achieve cold fusion, which is enormous because cold fusion produces a ton of energy, and to be able to do it without the heat of the sun being present would make everything a lot easier for us. And they claimed that they had been able to achieve it. They posted scientific papers, but whenever their research was attempted again, the results were the same. Now, in a world where a lot of people claim that a lot of things are true and a lot are false, where each person's perspective and experiences dictates a lot of how they feel about certain topics and what they believe in, having fields of knowledge which we can point to and say, okay, this was tested by a lot of entities and was verified by said entities should be pretty reassuring, right? However, science and scientists have been catching a lot of crap. That's the best way that I can put it since the pandemic. Basically, what happened is the world went to shit really fast, and suddenly we were in a massive pandemic where you couldn't leave your house and people were dying. And you either believe that the pandemic wasn't real, because how could such a thing be real? Or you believe the pandemic was real, and you looked at the scientific community and yelled at them, hey, do something. And they yelled, we are. It takes time. What happened was a lot of people got to see up close and personal how slow and how long the scientific process takes, and sometimes how hard it can be to follow. There's a lot of terminology that is used in scientific fields. If you ever had a class of biology or of chemistry and try to explain it to someone who doesn't have any knowledge of any sort on the matter, you will quickly understand what I'm talking about. And for a good amount of people to see the messy process, the slow process that is science, and see them what it was in their eyes being failing them, and not the huge undertaking that it was to create a vaccine in less than 2 years, it made a lot of people to completely lose hope in science. I'm pretty sure I stated it in the blog, but do you know which country reports the highest trust in science per capita?
Probably more highly educated countries, I'd have to assume.
Take
Well,
a
guess.
guess.
I don't know. Norway.
India,
What was it? The most distrust or the most trust?
the most trust.
Ah, really? Oh, it's India. Damn. Then I could have not guessed that.
Yeah, at 60%.
Huh.
Yeah. The United States, if I'm not mistaken, is below 20%. It's actually kind of scary.
Damn.
No, 40% say that they trusted in science in November 2020, and in February 2022, 29% say that they trusted in science.
The fuck?
Yeah, once again, it's scary.
Yeah, like
And it's like all fields of science, not just the average science, like specifically medical scientists, military scientists, they're all below average, like highly below average, compared to like even the military, for example. Especially when it comes to religious leaders. Religious leaders are up to, if I'm not mistaken, around 55%.
yeah.
So it is extremely scary. But going back to the topic, there's also the group of people that believe that nothing was happening, or that COVID wasn't real, or that the pandemic was all fake, etc. And also that also comes from a lack of faith in science, because there's this big group of authority with their jargon and all their studies and pristine white clothes, looking down at you saying, "Hey, this is happening," and your local preacher looks at you and says, "No, it's not." Like, who would you believe? The person that you have more association with, or the one that is clinical and distant? That's one of the main problems that science um, goes against, is the fact that a lot of times the media doesn't present scientists as empathic beings. It's almost like they're prophets of information, instead of just being people who are trying to share their findings with the world. For example, you watch the news, right, Red?
To be honest, I've kind of stopped because it's such
Yeah.
bullshit
But
all
you
the time.
used to watch the news, right?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. And sometimes they would bring specialists, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes you wouldn't understand the word of what you were saying.
Uh, I don't know. It depends. There's some which would like kind of dumb it down, and then it would be very easy to understand. But it would also be very clear that they also didn't probably really know what the fuck they're talking about. Um, not of like
Yeah.
not trusting them, purely just understanding that there's like inconsistencies in like the way they're trying to describe it, or their take is like uh politically like sort of.
Incorrect.
Yeah, no, not politically incorrect. Yeah, just purely of like they're not actually letting out all the information. They're like choosing what part of
Yeah,
like the science to let out
they're
for.
withholding truth.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That.
So I will give you another example, which might be better than this one. Imagine you go to the doctor and you do a specific type of exam, and then the doctor gives you the papers and say, okay, we're gonna get you an appointment with this other doctor,
Yeah, yeah.
which is a specialist.
I get what you mean. Like, just
Yeah,
being like bombarding you with so much information in such like a high technical terminology. They're like,
yeah.
sure.
I don't understand this. How can I trust this?
Yeah.
What do you mean there's some other person that is going to tell me the truth about this? I don't trust it. That's why you have so many people being against vaccines. And also, there's a lot of people that were tested wrongfully with vaccines. So it also is a whole other issue. The most important thing is it's recognizing that science as a whole is just a practice. Scientists are people, and as people, you can have scientists that are extremely flawed. Like German doctors did horrible, horrible things during World War One in the concentration camps, where they experimented heavily,
Okay, World War One is
especially
it's definitely not
with
World War
twins.
One, but I definitely got
World
that.
War Two, oh my God, World War Two, Jesus Christ, where they experimented heavily with twins. I'm so sorry and thank you. Jesus. Speaking of World War One, mustard gas was developed. You know what mustard gas does, don't you?
No, but it doesn't do any good. That I know. I don't know exactly what the
Let
technical
me give you a specific.
horrendous shit it does, but I definitely know that it fucks you up, and that's enough for me.
Okay,
I also know that
so
if you dye your hair and then pee in the shower, that you create mustard gas because of like there's like apparently like the products there's in hair dye and like urine or some shit or like some shit makes mustard gas. So a little fun fact there: don't dye your
okay,
hair and pee in
so
the
here we
shower.
go. Abdominal pain,
Okay, nice.
blistering of skin, yellow in color,
Mm-hmm.
bloody nose, cough,
Okay.
decreased formation of blood cells, decreased red and white blood cells, and platelets, leading to weakness, bleeding, and infection, diarrhea, difficulty breathing, and there's more.
All right, that sounds like a fun time.
And then they looked at that and say, let's do nervous gas, which,
I mean, nerve gas.
yeah, nerve gas, which, if you
A
don't
gas
know,
that
it
makes you
causes death.
nervous.
It causes death.
Yeah, isn't that like nerve gas just like a gas that like
Attacks your nerve systems.
yeah, like it sort of is overstimulates your shit. I don't even know.
Yeah.
I'm
And
not
then we
really
create an
into what
atomic
will kill
bomb.
me.
And then we create an atomic bomb.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Some would say
science has
it's
done horrible things.
yeah, but I don't know. Like the thing is,
Exactly. It's people that do those things. It's not a complex. It's not like how do I explain this? It's not an institution that runs on a basis that encourages these types of experiments and these types of behaviors. It's not like a company where being working and behaving like a frat boy is common practice.
yeah,
It's not like Blizzard. Um,
what? Huh?
sorry, slip of the
Huh?
tongue. It's a practice of gathering and publishing information that can be abused as everything. And as everything, one should be critical about it. We can't just take everything at face value, but we can't just discard it either because most often than not there is a basis to what is being shown and published. One of the many things that you see in dictatorships is a lack of scientific breakthrough. which is something that we talked about in the last podcast, with the fact that the lack of information is a dictator's best friend.
Yeah.
When people are uneducated, you could just shove truths down their throats, and they
They'll.
don't have anything to compare it to.
Yeah.
So, we also have occasions where science was misused and weaponized in a way to try and justify a group of people's views.
Yeah.
We saw that with eugenics, for example, which is not an easy topic to talk about.
Yeah.
In
No.
case you don't know, eugenics basically was the belief and practice that certain groups of people should not be allowed to reproduce so that they would not contaminate the gene pool. That was the basis for anti-Semitism in terms of the Nazi anti-Semitism, for example. So, it was created by members of the scientific community. Yes. Did it have scientific backing? Absolutely fucking not.
Well,
Is there a reason to distrust science as a whole?
I mean, saying
No.
okay. To be fair, saying that eugenics doesn't have a scientific backing, that's also technically not correct because it does, but it has to purely on the basis of evolution, right? Just purely of being like, if you're like, oh, let's blind people die or some shit, like because it makes our
It
gene pool
doesn't,
weaker.
because there's this small thing that
Like
they didn't
there's
take into account, which is called genetic mutation,
yeah, I
which is a
mean,
big part of our new view of Darwinism, which is
but
why
like
it's called duo-Darwinism. It puts that small but extremely valuable variant into the theory. So even if you call the entire population of people with disease, people with mental health issues, people with disabilities, you still have a chance of giving offspring that have those same issues because there's always a chance of genetic mutation. So
yeah,
no, it does not have scientific backing.
no,
It's fucking stupid.
I'm not saying it has scientific back. It says that it's based off scientific back in the sense that it's like looking at evolution, right, and like Darwinism, being like, okay, how do I interpret this? Whoa, how
Yeah,
do I interpret this in the worst possible way? That's
yeah,
what I meant.
that's actually a good example.
Because it's
That's
like,
not science because it took something and created a view of the world based on that information without research, without development of theory that was tested and reproduced, and without the entire moral qualms that came with it, because
yeah,
even on, like, just on a human level, it's abhorrent. So now we arrive to the end of the blog, which I've touched on this throughout this podcast because it all comes down to the crux of the problem, which is why do people not trust in science? And I actually have listed in the blog, but the study that I followed, which was conducted by PNAS, which is the Proceedings of the National Academy of Science, saw that there were four main reasons that led to people not trusting in science. Those being sources, in this case scientists, are perceived as untrustworthy, which is, I think, pretty obvious. Uh, the information activates a person's social identity as a member of a group, which has been represented by science or exploited by scientific work, and that group holds anti-science attitudes. For example, if you're part of a religious group that discards science because a myriad of reasons, you are more inclined to ascribe to not trust science. I think that's pretty obvious too. The information contradicts a personal belief. That one is also pretty straightforward. People are pretty stubborn, and if someday someone just came up to you and say, "Hey, you see this? Yeah, you were wrong." You just say, "No, show me your source. Here's the source. I don't believe in your source because it contradicts my way of viewing the world. That one is pretty common if you've ever been on Twitter. Uh,
On Twitter, if you've ever lived life, I mean, it's
yeah,
it's it's something that we have touched before on the podcast too when it comes to like
yeah,
the differences of being right. Like, or I mean, mostly when it comes to, I think, did we talk about this in the first episode? I think we did, about like just being right. The whole point of being progressive is this is exactly is how you react to, almost in a way, to that exact thing of being
yeah.
like, instead of reacting to it like nah, nah, it's like, maybe I am wrong, and then trying to first of all question, try to find sources, trying to understand if you're wrong, and if you are, then embracing those the new findings, embracing how they what they are. That's the whole point of being
Yeah.
progressive, is always trying to progress your views with the way that
Who would have
science
guessed that
is.
progressive means progression?
Really, Alpha, no way.
In a way.
Shocking, but yeah, it's interesting, and then it's also, I don't know if you, is there anything you really want to talk about the blog, because I have the best segue I have ever come up with.
One last thing, which is that thing about the information being delivered in a way the person doesn't understand. That's basically the four main reasons. But do give me the segue.
So the best segue I can get into our next topic is just a little bit of a bridge topic, which is the issue that, for example, that a lot of the times, that the lack of certain information through science in certain aspects, that is then, like, a lot of religious people then go, well, if you can't explain that with science, then it must mean that God is real. Um,
Okay, I cannot talk about that like really quickly.
sure, go ahead.
Okay, so this actually gets me a bit riled up. So there is a fallacy in philosophy. If I'm not mistaken, it's the fallacy of the wrong argument. If I'm not mistaken, that's the translation. So it basically says that you're given two options, which most of the time aren't the only two options in the existing scenario, and you are wrongfully told that you have to choose either between one or other. The example being God. Like, imagine someone came up to you and said, "Oh, there isn't good. There isn't. Sorry, there isn't. Damn it.
Uh,
Proof. Exactly.
uh,
There
uh,
isn't proof that God isn't real, so God must be real.
yeah,
No,
that's dumb.
it's like saying, "Oh, there isn't proof that you aren't a murderer, therefore you must be the murderer." No, that's how it works.
Yeah, it's dumb because, like, trying to explain God by it's by the lack of you being able to disprove him is dumb. I mean, it's
There
dumb.
is a whole
It's
sect of people that say that
it's dumb.
reason doesn't have anywhere near religion because guess what? Religion was made in such a way that you can't use reason to reason with it because it derives from the concept of faith, which escapes the whole existence of reason because it's unreasonable.
No, okay, to calm you the fuck down because you're a little too riled up. But it's also because it says like, oh, there's, you can prove that God doesn't exist. And one thing I'll give him one point, which is we can't we can't disprove that there isn't a concept similar to a God.
God,
But we can
yours
disprove
fuck doesn't have to be yours.
but we can disprove that all, at least famous. I mean, maybe there's one fucker in his basement who has the whole universe figured out. We don't know that with certainty. But that all gods known to general humanity aren't real, because they were, well, a lot of the shit that they based off, or their whole religion on, is stuff that science has then, I mean, almost out of spite in a way, tried to disprove,
Yeah,
and has proven that, almost every aspect of Christianity, for example, is just not possible. Like, it's
that's
not,
why Christians hate Darwin.
like, there is no such thing as creation out of just thin air. There's no such
Yeah.
thing as life after death, at least not as we can perceive it.
We might
Uh,
turn into four-dimensional beings, but
yeah,
Yeah,
like
we don't go to heaven, I think.
there's a lot of interesting concepts. For example, when it comes to, it's very weird that we're basing our philosophy on this, but it's something that I just find interesting, which is, for example, the fact that in comics, in DC Comics, that there's obviously the mind, right, which is basically just your brain. You have the body, which is your physical state, so you have your psychic, not your psychic, your mind, right? You have your
Psyche.
physical, and then you have your like sort of this thing, which is like essentially your soul, right? Which is like this, meaning that your mind doesn't have to be dependent. Like your mind can exist after a physical body, which I don't really know. Obviously, it's just a random like comic book, superhero comic book, right? So it doesn't
Yeah,
really
comic
have,
books are fucking wild.
but I find the idea like of something that we can't prove because it's something that is beyond us. Just because what you said is beyond the scope of our dimensional understanding.
Yeah.
So if that is the thing, we can't prove that, at least not anytime soon, because we
Eh,
just aren't technology advanced. But like also there's another thing based on off of fiction, which is, for example, Assassin's Creed, which says that God and shit are real, but they're just really advanced aliens.
So
So
there's a, the Assassin's Creed was based on a existing religion that said that humanity was created by aliens that came to Earth and created us.
yeah, so shit like that saying, but like, oh, there is no God. I mean, maybe there is like some sort of really advanced, like alien
Being.
race that did create our universe,
Like,
or
can you
that,
imagine how
but like,
fucking creative they had to be to make all this shit up?
I mean, not obviously. I don't think that there is like some sort. Well, there is like the whole simulation theory, which then that would be the closest thing to
I
like
like
an actual god.
simulation theory.
Like that's the closest thing to an actual god, right? But like that still is some. If that all those things are real, that is something that we could hypothetically one day come to prove, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know why I was going at this, but point
I
is,
wanted to give another segue before you go
yeah.
because of the whole religions thing. Like, you aren't a nerd as me, so I doubt that you will know this. But you know the basics of Greek religion, mythology. Sorry, Greek mythology, right?
Sort of, yeah.
Okay. You know anything about Nordic mythology?
No,
Like,
that's the one I know least about.
it's the coolest.
I mean, fair enough.
Okay, so something you see a lot throughout the mythologies, especially here in Europe and Asia, is the existence of a primordial deity whose body then is shaped into the world after its death, and the creation of two groups of gods that war with each other, trade hostages, and make peace between themselves.
Hmm.
And the whole idea is that there was a core religion, a core belief throughout the world, which then fragmented and became specialized in its different regions and got molded into the different mythologies that we have today. But there are still traces of those core beliefs. For example, the gods being in the heavens, the dead being in the underworld, one creation, one soul entity spawning the different ones, which then have their specific roles. Not to say that those entities are all powerful, and it makes a lot of sense, in my opinion. But then you try to look at that and say, no, 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 no. My beliefs are superior because my gods are more jacked than yours. Therefore, you are stupid and I am right. And that is just idiotic.
Yeah.
Especially if you're like, especially if your whole concept of God is love, and then you go kill others because God said to love everyone and kill everyone that doesn't agree. And you
Yeah.
don't even stop to ask if they actually think that loving is a good idea. It's just that they call the other god something different, therefore they are the enemy.
Yeah.
I hate Christianity and everything it's done to history.
Yeah,
You know the
it's
amount of
mm,
tests that like texts that were burned because of Christian monks?
I mean, do you know how much queer like research was burned by the fucking Nazis?
You know how many books were burned by the
God damn
fucking
it.
Nazis?
Yeah, it's the Nazis really pushed this back. It was fucking hell. Oh,
Shit,
annoying.
fascism is the enemy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Bottom text. I don't think
Uh,
that's really a stretch. Like, do you know that like that theory that says that the longer conversation goes on the internet, the more likely it goes to the Nazis?
no, I haven't, but I mean, that kind of makes. I mean, it doesn't make sense, but I do
I'm
want.
gonna find it. Give me a second.
Yeah, while you do that, I do want to say that like, I back to kind of what I was saying before of like, being like disproving the like God and stuff, right? First of all, we kind of have like we have this proven God as we know could
Godwin's
exist.
law.
We've definitely disproven the
Yeah, Godwin's law.
our known gods. However, I still don't think that the concept of a god could exist because, at least again, not a concept of God as we understand it. Because why would he be the way that we understand it, or not he, but it, right? Or why would this omnipotent being be the way that we understand it when it's so powerful, but then somehow our some random people around the world can understand it so well. It's again
But
illogical.
didn't you know, God created us as God created us in its image. We are a reflection of its divine beauty and wisdom.
All right, I want to
Therefore,
barf. Please shut up.
we have the gift of
Shh,
knowledge given unto you.
shh, shush. but
Quiet, heretic.
it's that's why I find it obviously like I'll say some shit if you will talking if you're like talking to me about this stuff like IRL. I'll probably say something which will kind of make you will make it sound like I am like agnostic, right? Which is the whole idea of not believing in a god, but also not believing that there couldn't be one, which
Yeah,
is what being an atheist is just being like, yeah, there's no god and period. Like what the fuck.
well, Satan.
And so it's like um the reason I'll say something like I don't the idea that there couldn't be some sort of advanced like alien species that somehow is responsible
God is
for our
aliens.
life
Bottom
is
text.
is
You know, I'm gonna go once again. You know that the Nazis started the ancient aliens
God
theories,
damn it,
right?
not again, not no, not this again, Alpha. That shit that has scarred me for life. I never want to think about it again. But
You are therefore subscribing to Nazist ideologies.
God damn it. No, but it's just like obviously it's because maybe I'm like romanticizing a little bit the concept of like there could be something out there. Not that there just because it would be cool, not out of like it's going to
I think we don't like
uh
to think that we are alone.
yeah, we
It's
don't like to
it's
think we're
lonely.
lost. So the idea that there could be something out there more that we somehow have some sort of meaning is kind of
Yeah.
cool. But at the same point, I view this whole sort of little theory that I could say purely as like as anything that is as valuable as my fiction writing, right? It's just something that I find cool, and
Yeah.
I see it as possible fiction because I know that I myself have no way to prove it or there's nothing to back it up. It's purely just a hey,
I mean,
it's not impossible, I guess.
you can
Hypothetically,
always die and check it out.
are you trying to make me kill myself?
No,
Uh
I have had a case of a friend of mine saying,
oh jeez.
"I'm gonna kill myself for research," and I was like, "Wait, what?"
Whoa. Okay. But yeah, I
That
do
was a weird day.
like there's also I mean, the biggest like shitty situation where a lot of religious people go like, yeah, but this could prove that God is real. Is like, oh yeah, you have like we'll go all the way back to the Big Bang, but then we can't
Big Ben,
prove. Yeah,
the center of the universe,
I've
the fucking British.
for context for the viewers, I was just a couple days in London, so and I saw the Big Ben a lot of times. So okay,
Is it big?
yeah, no, I mean I didn't see the actual Big Ben. Big Ben is like is the bell, right?
Is
Inside the
it
clock.
playing Ben?
Yeah, It's like 15 tons, so it's yeah, it's big. But however,
Is it
not the
cool?
point. I don't fucking know. It's just a fucking clock, bro. But
Did you
it's
hang out with it?
well, what? Anyways, but like they're like go back to the Big Bang, but it's like yeah, but you can't prove what created the Big Bang, and it's like yeah, but so what? So what? You're trying to say that a god created the Big Bang? Okay, like what? The
It's
fuck?
literally like that. How atheists think the world came to be: explosion, animals, plants.
So it's
Like
like,
how religious people think that the world came to be. Like God being like, this shit boring.
but like
Bam.
the thing is, even if it were true that some sort of being, right, some sort of higher being would have created,
And also,
uh,
where the
would
fuck
have
did God
caused,
came from?
would have, yeah, exactly. But still, before that, it's like,
You're telling me that there is a theory that literally says God is real because there are no infinite chains of causality. Therefore, there must be a primordial cause, and that cause is God. But God doesn't need a cause. Uh, 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 uh,
but it's I don't know, it's because yeah, that's another thing that I always ask. If God is real, then surely then God must have come from somewhere. He must
God's God.
like yeah, like the God if God were to be real in our understanding of the universe, then even assuming that he is real, it's like I
Yeah.
it's not possible because he must come from somewhere. He must either be again part of some sort of alien race or some sort of fourth dimensional being. So it's like
Really
yeah,
going with the alien race.
yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, anything that isn't human is an alien race. So
I really like the theory that all atoms are universes in their own right, which I know is impossible to be true, but I think that's funny.
yeah, it's like it's cool. It's because it's like the
Imagine a
whole
hydrogen bomb be
it's
like
kind of the same
destruction.
concept of like comparing like our eyeballs with the galaxy. They're very similar in or not the galaxies, nebulas. Like they have similar like sort of
What
looks
the
and
fuck
stuff.
was that sound?
Probably me hitting my microphone. Sorry. So there's a lot of stuff like that. There's a lot of like parallels that you can draw in the universe because hey, it's everything is connected to a degree, right? But it's
Yeah.
cool.
We came from the stars, literally.
Yeah, like the
We are
hydrogen.
like 90% empty space. And just like my physics
Um,
teacher liked to tell us, remember, you are nothing. He was pretty cool.
what
I really liked that teacher. He was dope. He once
but
gave me a test with like a multiple question answer, and all the questions, like all the options were wrong, but he didn't tell me, and I failed because there was one question that was the least wrong of them all. I was really upset after that.
all questions will be, will you shut the fuck up?
Sorry.
And all the answers will or no. Um, but it's yeah, I don't know. I don't. Maybe it's because I'm too like um I don't know, too much of
Based.
an atheist or whatever. But I don't. I could never like. I can understand why you could believe in a god, but I don't. I don't understand how like I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand it from the point of like from grief or from a
Bargaining.
being like depressed and needing an answer to sort of like save you, right? If it's like if that's what's gonna stop you from killing yourself, then hey, I'm here for it. Uh, I don't think that anybody should die like just because they're highly depressed and they kill themselves. I think that's very sad. And so if God helps you get you there to feel better, it's good. My best friend, that's what happened to him, and hey, I support him fully. And so it's I don't know. I can understand it from that perspective because I myself have struggled with my mortality and the point, like the what is the meaning of life and all that. But I
Yeah.
never, I just my the answer that I found was never the same. It was always something I never relied on anybody else or never relied on anything else other than me. And I think that's a lot of that's I think that's the biggest difference between like somebody being an atheist or somebody being religious is exactly that is like the belief that some like an atheist doesn't believe in a god but they believe in themselves in a sense that they believe that they are capable of doing stuff. They believe that without needing a god to motivate them, right? For
God isn't the meaning of life. The human experience is the meaning of life.
there's
The
also
interconnection between humans is what gives life's meaning.
I mean, I think we talked about this. Yeah, we did talk about this. Where I said, for example, that the best comparison that I think why we kind of have this phenomena of like trying to find the meaning of life is because everything that we create around us has a meaning because we gave it to it, and
Yeah,
that's why we hope that we were created because so that gives us a meaning. But hey, I don't. I think it's much cooler to think that that we are the only thing around us that is different, right? If there's
we are the
anything
special snowflakes.
if there's anything that like makes us special other than like or that makes life special compared to inanimate objects is the fact that we weren't created for anything other than yeah than just being sort I mean we could say that we're all a mistake in a way, but actually no, I mean depending if you actually look at the theory of evolution, then we're not all mistakes, we're all
A correction of a series of mistakes.
yeah, so it's like we're the solution of of issues. So the idea that throughout thousands, millions of years that there was certain little things or that one fucking fish made one choice and
The fucker.
and that was able to influence the entire chain of events that happen afterwards, right? The butterfly effect is so much more cool to me than some random unknown uh fucking entity
Like some cells were
that
created
is
in the perfect conditions of the ocean
yeah,
floor,
and
and I'm
it's
having this conversation with you because of it.
and then also the idea that like this being is omnipotent but also all knowing and all these things, but then they're the all
And all present.
but then the idea of being all knowing and being perfect but then also making so many mistakes is inconsistent there. God is also vengeful in the sense that consistently does things to its creations to make them fear him and all those things.
Yeah. And he's
So
benevolent and completely good, but evil still exists in the world.
yeah, and if God is all powerful and all knowing, but then also allowed the creation of evil to exist, for example, with Satan or whatever. I'm not really that well versed in in
But
religion to know if what I'm saying is exactly how it says in the Bible or whatever. But if that is the case, if he is all knowing all those things, that means that he lets evil exist. That means that he has the ability to let all these things exist.
and
So
he puts it under the guy in the supposed guise of free choice,
yeah.
even though there is still evil that occurs without free will. Like, how can you tell me that a baby that is born with a disease that has basically die a day after it's being born is a product of free will?
Yeah, and it's like, and it's not just that. It's also the whole concept of like the way you live life, right? It's the whole concept that you like. I don't wake up in the morning and decide, hey, I'm gonna murder Alpha in his sleep. Uh,
You don't?
no, I don't. I
Yeah, but
don't do that because I'm scared that God will, punish me in eternal damnation. I don't do it because I know that the next
it's the
morning
right thing to
when
do.
I wake up, I'm gonna first of all feel an immense just like why did I do this? Because it's just not something that I could ever do. It's something that goes completely against just who I am, and it's something that like I could never live with just purely just first of all the sadness of knowing that I killed a friend and just all these things, right? But also because I just it never even crosses my mind. It's something that it just is impossible for me to be able to do, right? I don't know how else to explain it. It's just not in my
It goes
moral.
against your very nature.
It's just yeah, it's just not in my moral code. So this whole idea, which I've also seen a lot in like I don't even know what just videos, right, of like an atheist and a religious person like debating or whatever, and like the religious person being like, yeah, then if like being atheist is just you're like is immoral, right? Or like being an atheist is like bad because then nothing is stopping you from like doing all these horrendous things. Whilst a religious person, the thing that's stopping them is like God, is dumb
There is
because
something stopping us. Like this is the part where I can nerd the fuck out. So, as as we exist, and in my worldview, and I think it's fair to say now, so Res worldview, there isn't most likely a great entity giving boundaries what is right or wrong, or saying what we should or shouldn't do, and giving meaning to life. We are, once again, the cause of a series of happy accidents that has led to a species of beings in the midst of millions being able to develop sentience and a conscience and a highly evolved way of thinking. And we can therefore interact with each other, feel, experience, imagine, create, us, but also get hurt, betray, hurt, etc., etc. So, outside of this system of interconnected people, there isn't a greater meaning to life. The only meaning to life that we have is the meaning that we give to each other. It's the interaction between friends, colleagues, families, cities, countries, the whole human race, which to a fox or a turtle or a tree doesn't mean anything. But even if there isn't a whole greater universal moral code and meaning, that doesn't mean that we ourselves can't operate behind a high moral value that assures that inside of our contained system, we can still try to achieve the highest form of happiness that we can, and also try to give the best possible lives to those that are around us. So, no, that doesn't mean that just because there isn't a deity stopping me from doing wrong things, that I can just do wrong things. Because I, as a human, have developed a moral compass which allows me to distinguish which types of situations would be right or wrong in certain scenarios, both in terms of what it would cause and why it's wrong when it comes to the violation of the moral norms that we ourselves impose upon us and our societies, which are constantly evolving.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I don't know. I've never the idea that like there's not like as an atheist, I've never been like, yeah, nothing is stopping me from doing that because I'm myself am stopping me from doing stuff.
Yeah,
It's just like I was thinking about this the other day. I don't remember. I think yeah, it was last night. For example, the whole concept of you having like a part of your brain, right, that like stops you from hurting yourself in certain
yeah, yeah.
ways. Like you can't full force, like fucking
Break
kick,
a glass with your bare hands.
like kick a fucking wall, right, with your foot, because your brain doesn't want you to hurt yourself. Therefore, you won't be able to do it full force. And in a way, I think that most people have that with their morals, right? Like I'm not gonna go out there and do certain stuff because I could never, like it's not even something that my brain can handle. The concept of me, the same way that
Yeah,
I could never look at a razor and cut myself, mental, the emotion that I get from thinking of that is the same that I get from taking that razor and hurting somebody else. I just can't. It's like a
yeah,
like a blockade, like in my head, and it's that's the thing is like. But then some people are like, no, 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 that's like that only religious people have that because it's God that
yeah,
like makes you stop, like makes you good into a good person. Whilst I think that honestly, which is something that I'm saying this purely out of my own personal life experience. There could be research that backs this up. So take this with a grain of salt. So this is my opinion. Doesn't mean that it's facts. But I do think that in a lot of situations, a lot of people turn to religion not because they're good people, but because they are bad people and they are trying to become good people. If that makes
yeah.
sense, like
Like
just
I was a piece of shit, and then I found God.
like I mean there's I don't think for example a lot of a lot of priests are pedophiles, right? There's a high percentage, way higher
You
than
know,
it
there are
should be.
some priests that like literally don't believe in God and just turn into the
Yeah,
position to be. Yeah,
so
it's
there's but
disgusting.
generally speaking, like I don't know what the percentage of human beings are pedophiles, but I'm pretty sure that at least I mean it could be because they're more
Give me a
figures
second.
of power because they have more a sort of stature, yeah, in their community, so maybe they're more denounced. It could be a lot of things, right? But I do, but like at least this is sort of a little theory that I have in my household with my parents, which is like that a lot of people have these like awful sort of feelings inside them, right? Like they look at a kid and think of them in a certain way, and they don't like it because it's like that's most people don't do that, so they see themselves as these abominations, and then they turn to God to try to fix them, right? And they go up the ladder in the church, and they'll achieve priest. But then as a priest, you have power, and then you don't abuse that power probably out of like intentionally, but one thing leads to another, and then when you find yourself you're doing this horrible thing. Obviously, what all this thing I'm saying is very on thin ice because obviously I'm not basing anything on that I'm saying on facts, really on my personal opinion. So it's kind of fucked that I don't like doing this on the podcast. But I don't know, it's definitely if we're gonna get philosophical, there's definitely a lot of people that turn to religion not out of like um out of thinking that it's the right thing to do. But purely, I mean, it is because they think it's the right thing to do because they think that what they're doing is wrong, so they must do it to fix themselves. For example, you see that in like a lot of people like internalized homophobia and
Yeah.
transphobia of being like turning themselves into like conversion therapy camps, which are religious camps. So it's like
Those
they
are abhorrent. You ever seen Clockwork Orange?
no,
Okay, don't. That's literally what they do to children.
but it's like it's exactly that. It's like they themselves just like handing themselves into instead of into an authority, right? Because there's no, at least when it comes to homosexuality and being transgender, there's nothing that's at least in most countries, there's nothing that is against the law about it. So obviously they can turn themselves in, being like, yeah, this horrible thing because you're just being yourself. But there's definitely a lot of people that they have these horrible thoughts, they have all these things, and then turn themselves into these religious groups because that's what they think that it's the right thing to do. Um,
Yeah.
and then
So
obviously that's why all that shit happens probably.
going back to that pedophilia, I can't tell you which percentage of humans are pedophiles, but I can tell you which U.S. state has the most sex offenders per capita. Are you interested?
I mean, sure, let my
It's
morbid
Oregon.
or Oregon down. Okay.
Yeah. After it's Arkansas, then it's Delaware, then Michigan, Wisconsin, South Dakota, Wyoming, Kansas, Tennessee, and then Florida. My like Google history is so fucked. So fucked. Okay, but going back just slightly to what you said about being conceivable to you causing pain to someone else, that is also an evolutionary too. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
we
That's
humans are social animals. We can't survive alone. Our brain gets completely and utterly destroyed if we pass too much time without contact with other human beings. So, why would you take actions that might push them away? Why would you hurt our potential survival methods?
yeah. It's like it's part of like every animal has sort of this instinct. That's just that we as humans don't
Yeah, but
like.
it's really fucking strongly because
Oh,
we monkeys.
oh, damn. Okay, Discord fucked up. Sorry for that, listeners. But
What happens?
yeah, you just cut off. So I don't know
Yeah,
what you said, but we'll move on because we can't really go
yeah,
back. But yeah, like it's just that I think that what you're gonna say is that yeah, like what we also consider our moral values are also survival. Like it's part of like our instincts, right?
yeah.
And so obviously as social animals we need our social part to be able to survive, therefore we
Who
will
would have guessed?
how our moral our instincts will always reflect what is best in the current social uh not a social in the current society, right? So of course you won't be a certain way.
I think social was the most accurate here, but okay.
I don't know, I was trying to say social context, that's what I meant.
In our ignore social context society,
Yeah, whatever, fuck you.
we live
But
in a society. Bottom
we
text.
truly do. But it's just that obviously
Ah,
you're gonna try to like it's but the thing is we as humans, or most I say I say we because most, I don't, I personally have no issue with it, but we don't like admitting that we are animals and that we are as irrational as them, that we are just little
We
creatures
are
doing our
rational
best.
animals. That's the difference.
So it's being like, no, 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 like we, like for example, the whole
We
concept,
different. We special. We
the
created by God.
I was actually talking about, my mom is a has a doctorate in psychology, so she knows about this probably more than us. I hope so. Uh,
Yeah.
but she was I was talking to her about how as all as we know, most species have the concept of
Brain damage.
homosexual, almost, yeah, sorry, I'm really tired, have the concept of homosexuality, but only one has the concept of homophobia, right? And that she
Yeah.
was like, yeah, that's strife that originates from the fact that we wanted to separate ourselves from animals, right? And that since we saw other animals do it, and since it didn't align with at the time our religious values, that was like an that was
Yeah.
seen as like an animalistic sort of tendency,
Like
right?
nature
Therefore,
is
it's wrong.
freaky. Like some snakes have the anaconda has giant orgies in order to try to procreate.
Yeah,
Blue
and
whales double tag females.
ducks are rapists.
Yeah, so are dolphins. Uh, Penguins can literally try to mate with the floor successfully.
I mean, they're just lonely, I guess.
Yeah, no, like
They're like
penguins are fucking traumatizing. I hope you never learn
poor
half
penguins.
of what I know about penguins.
I mean,
Uh,
I know that they're gay and they like, and it's really sad, but there's this
okay,
one.
I'm gonna tell you something.
s-
Some researchers put the head of a small penguin, which had been killed by a seal, on top of a rock and saw a male penguin finishing on the rock. So that was just one of the things.
I was, I
Seals are
was,
pedophiles.
I was.
Giraffes are
Oh god.
gay. So are lions. We're not gonna have this conversation.
I
Uh,
mean, to go a little more wholesome, just to finish out this topic, since we are over the 1 hour mark, uh, there's this one gay penguin couple who wanted to have a baby, but they couldn't, so they found a rock. Well,
because they're gay.
yeah, and
That's how it
they
works.
randomly found this rock which really resembled an egg, and they thought that it was an egg, and they tried to raise it, the egg, and,
Oh my fucking god.
but it wouldn't hatch, so they would just stay there trying to warm it up so it would hatch
Oh, that's heartbreaking. Ah,
until this was in a zoo, by the way, until the zookeepers, they gave them an actual egg, and then it hatched into a little baby, and then it was a girl, a female penguin, and then the female penguin grew up and somehow also tried to mate with another female penguin, so that whole lineage of fucking penguins is gay. I don't know what the fuck is going on there, but I
we have
love
gay
it.
penguins. Let's
Gay
go.
penguins, let's go. And then there's also trans lions, trans men lions. Well, a bunch of like
Fair enough.
lionesses will just grow lion manes and produce testosterone suddenly, and they in the pack they're treated as lions,
Yeah.
as male lions.
Hyenas have penises, like female hyenas
Yeah,
do.
both male and female have penises.
Imagine being
So
born out of a penis. Oh my god.
there's somebody out there has drawn a hentai of that. Uh,
No, please don't. Like, if I'm saying like 45% of hyena cubs
bro,
suffocate before they can be
it's
born.
it's Rule 34. You know what Rule 34 is?
I have
If
seen porn of a paperclip because of Rule 34.
what? Okay, that's confusing. But yeah, it's like
Yeah,
if it exists, there's porn of it out there. So somebody has made
yeah.
penis
It's
pregnancy
scary.
hentai. Oh god, I don't know
Don't, don't,
why do we
don't, don't.
talk. Oh my god.
Oh,
Anyways,
the pencil video.
time to
Time to
finish.
finish this podcast and bleach my eyes in years.
Uh, Jesus Christ, that one scared me a little. Uh,
What?
I don't know. I got a little flabbergasted by that one.
What's the bleaching or the penis?
Everything, the whole conversation. Uh,
This is so cursed. There truly is no God in here.
so
Uh,
yeah. Anyways, it's the end of the podcast. Jesus Christ, I'm kill me. Oh shit, sorry, I hit my microphone. Uh,
I won't, because it gets my moral values.
I'm definitely there's. I was having this conversation with my best friend, right, and I was saying that I was talking about the last episode where I suddenly let my pen case fall, and I was like, I really hope that nobody watches this podcast while they're trying to fall asleep, and just like that just startled them the fuck up when they heard that shit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. They definitely won't be falling asleep to this fucking video because they'll get fucking nightmares with the ending. But hey,
I have literally fallen asleep to worse. You
yeah,
know the Greek myth of like the guy that saw like Artemis naked and he got turned into a deer and turned into a deer and was eaten by his own hounds.
no alpha. I have something called a life.
Okay, so I was watching a video about that and I fell asleep and I dreamt that I was being thrown about by dogs. It wasn't fun.
Okay, so as it's the end of the episode, Jesus Christ,
I'm gonna get the fuck out.
we have to plug the Patreon, but before that, a little bit of an announcement, which we don't usually do on uh the
Oh,
the podcast. But I
oh,
mean, I'm gonna do something two things. But hey, first of all,
I'm doing something.
which is support the Patreon. Support the Patreon. You'll have access to some little
Con?
fun stuff. But of course, well, if you subscribe to our Patreon, obviously you'll be supporting us, which is obviously what
Others
we care about.
appreciate it.
Obviously, because we're trying to grow this brand, and so obviously every little bit of money helps. Whilst we don't like it, unfortunately, that's the world we live in. Uh, and so money is something that we need, which is dumb because we believe we sorry, I'm so tired. Oh my god. I'm so sorry. Nothing I'm saying makes any sense. But hey, that's you started watching this, so you knew what to expect. But yeah, support us on Patreon. We very much appreciate your help. It's something that, we're very passionate about what we do here. And so you supporting us shows us that you love what we're doing, and then obviously we can make what we're doing even better with your help. But you'll also have access to a little bit of a cool thing, which is our Discord. However, in past episodes, I said that you'd have access to the private Discord, but the private Discord isn't private anymore. There's now a private section, which is still the same. You have access to submitting questions to the podcast Q&A, which we will answer in this section of the podcast. But you also can, the description below, if you're watching on YouTube, and if you're not watching on YouTube, then I don't know. Go to our social medias, go to our website, you'll find it there. But you have access to our public part of Discord where you can talk to us. You can I mean, that's pretty much all you can do right now. You can talk to us, post memes, and basically present who you are, which is just a little fun section if you want people in the community to know you better. So you can do that. Um, and there's also something which has existed for a couple of weeks now, but it's something that we haven't actually talked about in the podcast for some reason, which is the Politdigm Pulse Check, which is a place, well, not a place, it's something that happens bi weekly or not always bi-weekly, but we try to do it bi-weekly, which happens on Instagram, which is where we will be asking you some questions, and then we'll be answering those questions on there. Uh,
Instagram Q&A be like,
was there a joke? Okay, I'm gonna take that as a no.
"Oops,
But it's yeah, it's, I
my
mean,
account?"
you might assume it's very similar as the podcast Q&A, and in a way it can be, but it's not as broad in a way because each week that it happens, the Paul Dime Pulse Check, it's always a different question. So
Yeah.
stay tuned to that if you want to make our content better, because we'll be asking questions about specific stuff like how how could we make our content better? Is there something that you don't like about the way Paradigm is? Just tiny little things just to get community feedback. And so we'll be doing that on Instagram. Obviously, we'll be doing that on Discord, but for now, we're going to be doing that, I guess, everywhere or as many places as we can to get as large of a
An
response.
audience.
Yeah, it's just to get as many responses as possible because obviously
Okay.
the more feedback, the better. Um, and
And that wraps
um,
it up, right?
and that's it. Yeah, I'm gonna go to sleep because it's basically midnight.
Who needs? I don't need sleep. I need answers.
I don't need sleep. I need caffeine and games
Caffeine.
and bacon. What?
I've drank so much coffee this summer vacation. It's actually terrifying. Like
but
I legit drank like 4 mugs of coffee a day when I was studying for my exam. So
what the fuck? Okay, that's
I
more
have
than my entire
transcended
life.
caffeine.
But hey. that's it. Thank you so much for watching. We love you guys. Thank you to all the people that watch these. Stay tuned for next week's blog on Monday and uh, podcast on Wednesday in a week if you're watching this on the day that this podcast comes out. And we'll see you in the next episode. Is there anything you want to say before we end the episode, Alpha?
Not really. Just have a good one, be good people, and see you next week.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.